So what's it really like to fly a combat mission? We used to say it was 2 hours of boredom, interrupted by 2 minutes of sheer terror. Today I hope to take you back on a flight I made where I experienced my 2 minutes of terror. But to do that, we need to take you back to 1972. Imagine yourself as a young 26-year-old lieutenant junior grade in the United States Navy, a member of Fighter Squadron 151. For the last 2 years, you've been stationed at Miramar Naval Air Station in San Diego, California, otherwise known as Fighter Town, USA, home of Top Gun. You fly the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II, the world's fastest jet fighter. It was so fast it could fly from San Diego to Los Angeles in less than 9 minutes, but be out of gas before it got there. Now if you saw the movie Top Gun, you know there were such cool names as Maverick, Goose, Iceman. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we had more realistic call signs. We called my pilot, Steve Modlin, Milo, and I was known as Kemp. But we had some great call signs like Dirtbag, Bed Hog, Hot Dog, and Cookie Bear. And the one thing we all had in common was our love of flying the F-4 Phantom II in countless dogfights. And for the last 5 months, you've been deployed on the aircraft carrier USS Midway. On the other side of the world, in a place called Vietnam. Home away from home on that cruise was a place called Yankee Station at the Gulf of Tonkin, Vietnam. Today's flight will take us right into the heart of the Iron Triangle, the most heavily defended area in the entire world. Over 2,000 U.S. aircraft were lost over North Vietnam. 190 of those were hit by missiles, so it was a very dangerous place. Today's mission will send almost all of USS Midway's Air Wing 5 aviators against a single target in what is called an alpha strike. Because of the concentration of enemy air defenses around Haiphong, the strike group will coast in east of Haiphong, drop down behind the karst ridges, then pop up over the mountains and roll in on the target. After dropping their bombs, they will egress, feet wet, out to the sea. In the meantime, we will have taken up a MiG-cap station right in the heart of the Iron Triangle to protect the strike group from enemy aircraft out of Gia Lam and Kep Air Base. As usual, Red Crown will be monitoring all traffic in and out of North Vietnam. Then the mission planners brief the crews on their assignments. Today's target is the Haiphong shipyard, where each squadron is assigned specific targets. They told us we should expect heavy AAA while over the target, including 23 and 37mm anti-aircraft artillery guns, along with a larger 57 and 85mm guns, perhaps even manned by an American actress, Jane Fonda, who was protesting the war at the time. And we should also expect to encounter surface-to-air missiles while on target. These are Soviet-made, radar-guided missiles, 32 feet long, capable of flying at 3.5 times the speed of sound. Once you've seen one in flight, you will understand why we call them flying telephone poles. So how do you evade a missile traveling at 3.5 times the speed of sound? Fortunately, your aircraft is equipped with a number of defensive weapons. When the aircraft detects a threat radar tracking it, it automatically captures the signal, amplifies it, delays it, and sends it back to the launch site. If you are lucky, it confuses the radar and gives the missile a false target. You can also launch chaff and flares. Chaff is nothing more than tiny strips of metal that create a cloud of reflective material around your aircraft. And we always carried flares in case they fired a heat-seeking missile at us. But that was only half the battle. We knew if you flew directly at the launch site, your chances of being shot down were well over 80%. So we always tried to maneuver our aircraft so the launch site was at our 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock position. That gave us the best chance of evading the missile. But once that missile is in flight and guiding on you, the best way to defeat it is with a perfectly timed barrel roll around the missile's flight path. The obvious risk of such a maneuver was turning too soon or too late. If you turned into the missile a few seconds early, the missile adjusted its intercept course and completed its mission. And turning too late guaranteed that you would end up being tortured as a prisoner of war in the Hanoi Hilton prison. For those of us who flew over North Vietnam, it was a fate worse than death. Back in the ready room, Joe Thompson briefs our portion of the flight. Joe is the operations officer for our squadron, and he is livid, because our sister squadron has already shot down 4 MiGs, and we have none. So he has come up with a plan on how to get his MiGs. His plan is to trick the enemy into thinking that one of us has been shot down. He hopes the MiGs will hear our distress call and attack us. But we will be ready for them, and we will both get our MiGs. We tell Red Crown in the Gulf of Tonkin what our plan is and to play along with us no matter what we say. Meanwhile, crews are up on the flight deck preparing the aircraft for launch. While ordnance men are loading the heavy bombs on the aircraft, plane captains are double-checking the aircraft's instruments and equipment. Well, it looks like the ship is turning into the wind, so it's time to launch all aircraft. For everyone's safety, the Angel helicopter is airborne during all launch and recovery cycles. The first aircraft to launch is the radar-domed E-2 Hawkeye, or Eyes in the Sky. Then the A-7 Corsair light attack aircraft are launched. Next up, the A-6 Intruder, an all-weather medium attack aircraft. And at least one A-6 tanker is launched on every cycle. Next up, the F-8 Crusader photo reconnaissance aircraft. Finally, it is our turn to launch. You cannot imagine a more thrilling ride. 0 to 150 knots in less than 2 seconds. The first order of business is to take on more fuel from the overhead tanker. And to do that, you placed your fuel probe inside the 2-foot basket and flew in perfect formation. Once everyone is topped off, it's time for the bombers to rendezvous with the rest of the Alpha Strike group. Meanwhile, we join up with Joe and his radar intercept officer, Ben Thompson, and head for our coast endpoint just south of Haiphong. Before entering North Vietnam, you need to become familiar with 2 threat warning devices. One is the radar warning receiver that tells you the type and direction of the threat radar. The other is the surface-to-air missile receiver. Let's test them to make sure they are working. This is what AAA looks and sounds like. This is what a SAM launch looks like. And when the missile receives guidance, it will sound like this. It's a sound you never want to hear. It looks like we're already taking AAA out of Haiphong. Fortunately, if you can see AAA, you can usually defeat it. It's the ones you don't see that kill you. No sooner had we arrived on station than Joe started screaming, "Mayday! Mayday! 201's been hit. Can't hold it." Red Crown immediately responds, "Roger 201, rescue helicopters are on the way." And just as I was ready to transmit, "Get out, you're on fire," kabam! We suffer a catastrophic electrical failure. We immediately go through our emergency procedures, trying to get the generators back online, because we have no radios, no radar, no countermeasures, and no missiles. I've never felt more vulnerable in all my life. And here's Joe calling in the MiGs. We finally got our instruments back. We could hear Joe telling Red Crown our exact position. He was still trying to draw out the MiGs. But as we neared Hanoi, Red Crown informed us the strike group was feet wet, so we reversed course. Now our only thought was to make it safely back to the sea. Just as we crossed the Red River, a SAM site lit up our radar receiver. As we looked toward Haiphong, we saw a cloud of dust. Then a tiny speck grew out of that cloud. They had launched a missile at us. As we watched, we saw a second missile come out of that dust. Now there were 2 missiles headed our way. Joe told us to go down to make sure the missile was tracking us, so we rode over and headed for the weeds. We watched as the first missile headed down toward us. Suddenly it exploded a few miles in front of us. But the second missile kept coming. When we moved, it moved. It was getting closer and closer, bigger and bigger. Joe said, "Stand by. Stand by. Pull!" But we were a split second too soon. We watched in horror as the missile cut the corner and headed toward us. We could feel the concussion. Joe thought he had been hit. So we checked his aircraft over and were amazed there was no damage, because the missile had gone off right under his tail. Finally, we were feet wet, back over the safety of the sea. Then the euphoria set in. You cannot begin to understand what an adrenaline rush that was. I remember yelling, "I beat you, devil!" I had beaten death. But our euphoria was short-lived. Red Crown informed us our squadron mates had been shot down by a surface-to-air missile over Thanh Hoa. So we air refueled and went back into North Vietnam to provide cover for the rescue. But it was too late. They had already been captured. The mission may be over, but the story is not. After landing, we headed down to the Dirty Shirt wardroom for dinner since we were still in our flight suits. We were still high from the flight, congratulating each other on our remarkable airmanship. Then an A6 pilot sat down with us. We told him all about how we had evaded those 2 missiles. He said yes, he knew because he followed us out after his own mission to Hanoi. But then he asked, "How did you get away from that 3rd missile?" We both turned pale. One minute we were patting each other on the back, the next we were humbled to realize how close we'd come to death and didn't even know it. When we reconstructed the flight, this is what we think happened. Had the first missile not gone off course due to our countermeasures? had we not performed a perfectly timed barrel roll. Had the third missile not gone off on our flare, you would never know what it's really like to fly a combat mission. And to this day, when I see a tall, dark pole off in the distance, I'm immediately back over the skies of North Vietnam, battling my flying telephone poles. So the next time you see someone wearing a Vietnam veteran's cap, or see a yellow patch with red stripes, please stop and say thank you for your service. That's all they've ever wanted to hear. If you would like to read more stories about my adventures over North Vietnam, I encourage you to read my book, Tail End Charlie and Other Tales of Aerial Combat over North Vietnam. It's available online or special order from your favorite bookstore.